Tonight on Free Minds TV, we'll be talking about the economic stimulus. We'll also be discussing one university which is banning Nerf guns, the Downsizer Dispatch, plus a whole lot more. All coming up tonight on Free Minds TV.
And welcome to a brand new edition of Free Minds TV. It is episode 137, and it is Toby here with you.
And Nick.
All right, Nick, we've got a lot to talk about on today's show. We have some stories from over in the UK, as well as talking about one campus that has banned the use of Nerf guns, or even carrying a Nerf gun on campus. We'll be getting into that, but first I wanted to talk about something that's been really big in the news. At least every time I turn on the radio, seems people are talking about the job numbers and how Obama's stimulus package really helped boost up the job numbers and created over 500,000 jobs over the last year, since February, so nearly a year here. And I just wanted to point out a brief little article from Reuters that paints a different picture than I've been hearing on the news. Because I've been hearing on the news, and I don't know, maybe it's just the stations I've been listening to, but that the jobless numbers are down, and there's been a creation of like 0.2% new jobs or something. Anyways, they say that it's a good thing the economy's picking up because there are more jobs out there. The stimulus packages have been creating new jobs.
I'm sure to some extent they have. I mean, if you create enough money and throw it at the economic system, you can create jobs, especially if you're creating shovel-ready projects like they have been with road construction and other infrastructure, things where you do need workers to work on it. So you're creating jobs, or you're preserving construction workers' jobs in those cases that would have otherwise been lost.
There you go. But it's a bit more than that. Each one of these jobs, and going into the article here from Reuters, there have been 640,000 jobs approximately created since February by Obama's stimulus package. Now, how much did that cost? That cost $157.8 billion. Now, divide that by the number of jobs, and each job that the Obama administration stimulus package created cost $246,436. Be better off if we just paid everyone $50,000 who had gone on unemployment, and we would have affected millions of people instead of just 640,000. So, Nick, is a stimulus package worth it to create new jobs if you're costing nearly $250,000 per job you're creating? And where does all that excess money go anyways? I mean, you're talking about creating shovel work, ready-to-work jobs that aren't paying $200,000 a year. So where is all this money going? Because $246,000 per job created by the stimulus money, that's a lot of money floating around that's being picked up by someone, right?
Well, I mean, it's being picked up by the taxpayers, ultimately.
But who's getting the money? Someone's got to get the money.
Well, I mean, if you think about the projects that they've been working on, you're talking about road construction, you're talking about other similar projects for the most part. So you're talking about jobs where you have to buy things, you have to buy asphalt, you have to buy more equipment. There are extraneous things that go into creating this job to give the people something to do. I mean, you could pay these people to stand around, but you have to spend money on the projects themselves.
So these projects might be creating jobs that aren't being seen here. Must be. Because they're boasting 640,000 jobs created. It still seems like a lot of money. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being cynical here.
Well, either that or they're overestimating the number of jobs that they're creating. Which seems like a possibility to me too, because the government's official statistics, when they were putting them up on the web.
It's recovery.gov,
right.
If you want to see them. These aren't hidden numbers.
This was a story where they were showing jobs being created in congressional districts that didn't even exist. Now, how many of them were fake or duplicate jobs, I don't know. Personally, I don't think the government knows either. I think the administration and the Congress to some extent have a vested interest in leading the American people to believe that the stimulus money was well spent, even if we didn't get a very good return on it. So I would say best case, yeah, we probably spent about $250,000 per job created. Of course, we still have an unemployment rate.
But that's all money that needs to be borrowed, essentially, or printed, or somehow taxpayers are footing the bill for this. And would the country not be better off if people were allowed to simply keep their money, or were given a break on taxes that they're having to pay into the government? Would that not create more jobs, or at least keep some jobs that are being lost, if there were tax breaks for businesses or something along those lines?
And you also have to remember, as painful as it might be, when you have an economic correction like this, one of the economic mechanisms at work here is that companies will eliminate redundant employees that they can do without. So
make everyone more efficient.
Right. They make everybody more efficient, which generally means working harder. But in the long run, it makes these companies more efficient and the economy overall more efficient. So seeing an unemployment rate increase during a recession, granted this was a recession that happened, in my opinion, because of government intervention in the market, but when you're seeing unemployment rates increase during a recession, that's a normal, natural process, and it helps eliminate some of these redundant positions that are a drain on the economic system as a whole. So if you just let the market work, you might find that the redundant jobs are eliminated and new industries come about or are hiring that will bring people back on. Quite honestly, I don't think the U.S. economy is very well positioned for a recovery in terms of jobs right now.
It was 0.2%, I think, were the latest numbers. And who knows how many of those are just because people are coming off of unemployment, so they're no longer being counted, because, of course, we all know that the official jobless rate or unemployment rate is somewhere around 10%, but that's only counting people who are collecting unemployment checks. Really, it's probably 15 to 20%.
Right, especially, yeah, and if you count people who have gotten fired from, say, a professional job and they're working at, I don't know, say somewhere like Sears or a big box retailer this year, they're really not making anywhere near what they were making when they were working a full-time job with, say, a professional company. They're still counted as employed, but now they're underemployed in terms of the bills that they have to pay. So if you count the underemployed with the unemployed, you would see a much higher unemployment figure in this country.
All right. Well, Nick, one thing.
A lot of those jobs aren't coming back, though.
Right. Well, especially the ones that are paid for by tax dollars, these ready-to-work programs, once the stimulus money dries up, if the economy's not picked up, those jobs will dry up as well. So we're really nowhere further down the line except out $246,000 per job that was created, and those people eventually, unless the economy picks up and there's demand for that type of work, those people will be out of jobs as well. One thing it has done, though, by pumping, it's been much more than this, but in this case, $157.8 billion. This isn't tax money. Our taxes didn't all go up from this. This is borrowed money or printed money. One thing it has done is it's weakened the dollar a lot because we're essentially printing money or borrowing from other countries. And that's done something for drug dealers, actually, that we've seen other countries threaten to do, switch away from the dollar as a peg system. Looks like drug dealers are now either threatening to do it, or some of them are actually doing it.
They are. This deals mostly with big-time dealers, the cartels out of Colombia and Mexico. And it's not necessarily because of a weakening U.S. dollar, although that probably doesn't hurt this switch here. International drug cartels have abandoned the U.S. dollar for high-denomination euros to launder millions in illegal profits. The gangs no longer use $100 U.S. notes because, well, it takes a lot of $100 U.S. notes if you need to move, say, $10 million across the border. And you don't want people to know that you're moving $10 million across the border. It's much easier to put the money into 500 euro notes, which is worth, I don't know the exchange off the top of my head, I would say over $700 if I'm figuring correctly, for each note. So you need 1/7 the number of bills. That's a lot less bulk to carry around with you. The United States used to issue some of these higher denomination bills.
They had a $100,000 bill at one point, I believe.
I don't know if that ever really hit circulation. We did have a $10,000 bill, I believe, at one time. And I know the 500 was a common circulating
$1,000 bill was also very common.
So supposedly those larger denominations in the U.S. were eliminated for this reason. As part of the war on drugs, they said, well, it's too easy for drug cartels to move their profits around. I personally think it also had a lot to do with people working their way around the IRS, as much as it did have to do with the war on drugs, although the war on drugs was a more politically popular excuse to get rid of these high denomination notes. So, I mean, it looks like a substantial number of drug cartels have switched. There is one report here from Colombia saying that only $300,000 worth of euros were declared as entering Colombia between January and June 2007, but over $551 million worth of euros left the country during that period.
Interesting.
Once they get to
Does
Europe,
this mean anything
well,
for your average Joe? I mean, does it? I mean, besides the interesting tidbit, it doesn't really affect most people.
I personally, I think we're going to see a lot of other industries, legal industries, switching away from the U.S. dollar.
We already have, to a certain extent, or at least
to a certain extent. I mean, but oil exchanges, most foreign commodity exchanges, foreign transactions between governments and between corporations using two different currencies, traditionally, by and large, the industry standards are that they're settled in U.S. dollars. So oil is expressed in terms of U.S. dollars, whether you're in Egypt, whether you're in India, it doesn't matter. Now, eventually, that could change, and I think it could change a lot sooner than most Americans realize, and then we do have a problem, because the world no longer will necessarily accept our paper by default. So if we print too much of it, they may not accept it at all, at least not at the values that most Americans would like to think their money is worth.
And it is our #1 export, Nick, so we need to figure out something else to export if the dollar's not worth anything. Anyways, it is getting on in the show here, and we need to switch over to the part of the show where we let viewers know how they can get involved and contact their representatives in Washington, or so-called representatives, and let them know how they feel about different subjects, and we try to do that each week with the Downsizer Dispatch. What do you got on top this week?
Well, this week's Downsizer Dispatch is dealing with the health care bill. And if you're not too pleased with some of the proposals on the table, you could go to downsizedc.org and contact your elected officials in Congress. Let them know that you're not necessarily so supportive. And Downsize DC is recommending one sample letter here. Just a quick excerpt from the sample letter that you could use. You can personalize your messages over at Downsize DC too, so you can do your own thing. But here's something they're suggesting that you send to your representatives in Washington. I'm pleased to learn that Senator Baucus finally confessed during a debate in the Senate on Wednesday, December 2nd, that the true 10-year cost of the health care bill will be closer to $2.5 trillion than the nearly $1 trillion cost he sold to the public. Increasing numbers of other Americans are following what you do very closely. We are well aware that congressional leaders have rigged the CBO score. We know that this has been done by delaying the start point, where they measure the spending, so that it falls beyond the 10-year window evaluated by the CBO. This is a trick that they've used before, and basically they're saying to the Congressional Budget Office, give us an estimate of the cost of health care over the next 10 years if the program and the funding for it take effect, say, in 2012, but only give us the estimates up until 2019. Then you're only getting 7 years worth of spending during the 10 years, when in reality the start date would probably be much sooner. So it's a good way to hide some of the true costs of the health care bill. So if you're not too pleased with that, maybe you could go over to Downsize DC and check out some of the campaigns they have up there. Also, as a quick excerpt, they do point out here that Richard Foster, who's the actuary for Medicare and Medicaid services, estimates that the health care bill's insurance mandates will cause $62 billion in fines being paid by individuals through 2014 and 2019. That's a lot of money. And businesses are estimated to pay $118 billion in tax penalties as a result of the current proposals on the table.
With some truth coming out that I think we've been talking about for quite a while, Nick. I mean, we've been talking about this 10-year window since the proposals were first being made.
And this happens with every government program. They always lowball the costs, and then once they get the program in place, they can let the numbers adjust
it's there
upwards.
Forever.
Once it's in place, it's going to be virtually impossible to undo this.
Anyways, if you want to make a difference, or at least have your voice be heard, downsizedc.org. All right, Nick, when we come back, we are going to be talking about a Batman souvenir knife that landed one UK man behind bars for over 4 months, as well as Nerf guns being banned on one US campus. All that and a whole lot more. Stay tuned. This is Free Minds TV.
Free Minds TV is brought to you in part by Life Productions for your basic and semi-pro video production needs. From full wedding and event coverage to DVD authoring and distributions, lifeproductions.com. That's lyfproductions.com.
Hi, I'm Ian Freeman from Free Talk Live and FreeKeen.com, and you're watching Free Minds TV.
And welcome back to Free Minds TV. As always, it is Toby here with you.
And Nick.
All right, Nick, I wanted to get right into the articles here and go over across the pond over to the UK. We have quite a few listeners over there, as well as television viewers. And I wanted to talk about one man, Mr. Todd Rushworth, who landed himself behind bars for 4 months. Why, you ask? Well, it was because he had a 3-inch souvenir Batman knife.
That's not a very big knife.
Not incredibly large, no it's not. But there's zero tolerance over there in some parts of the UK. And this coming out of Atherton, who had never been in trouble before, was told by a judge that the knife crime was so serious a deterrent sentence had to be imposed. Quote, "The message needs to go out loud and clear to anyone who carries a knife that there is zero tolerance as far as the court is concerned," said Judge Neil Gilmore, QC, whatever QC means. "The knife is very sharp," said the judge. "Extraordinarily sharp, in fact." So he just could not have it. And
I think the QC is maybe Queen's Counsel.
Queen's Counsel?
I'm not sure.
We've got, what, Esquire or something?
Well, we have...
That's a lawyer.
I know in the U.S. justice system, it's referred to, say a case is referred to as the state versus so-and-so, whereas in Canada, at least I'm familiar...
it's against the Queen.
Well, it's against the Crown. They say the Crown versus so-and-so.
So this man committed a crime against the Crown. Yes, he dared carry a souvenir knife that he got after he watched Batman. He'd been carrying the knife for over a year before he was found in it, but after being stopped by the police, they did a search of his person and found the 3-inch weapon on him. When questioned, he said he was carrying it for protection, actually, but that will not be had. Zero tolerance, and they're trying to send a message to anyone else who wants to carry any kind of a souvenir blade or a protection blade, whatever it is. There's no tolerance over there. You shall not be protecting yourself. The judge said, what if he had had an altercation and he used it to defend himself? What if, Nick?
Yeah, well, you're not really, essentially the expectation in the United Kingdom, from what I can gather, is that you're not expected to defend yourself. I mean, if you're attacked by somebody with a knife or a bat or a gun, the expectation is that you really shouldn't try to fight them.
No.
Stupid idea to not resist somebody, by the way. I mean, most of the studies I've looked at have shown that even if you're being robbed, it's usually a better idea to pull a gun on the perpetrator than to simply hand them your wallet, because not offering any kind of resistance in many cases doesn't give them any kind of incentive not to hurt you if they're a psycho. Some crooks are just out for your money. Some of them would like to stab you or beat you while they're at it too. And usually if you pull out a gun, if they're after your money, they realize they could probably get money more easily from somebody else. And if they're a psycho, they might want to hurt you really bad, but they might not want it badly enough that they get hurt in the process.
3 inches isn't very much, Nick. That's a very small blade that there's zero tolerance for. That's 4 months in jail for carrying that. Are we really to believe that there's no one in the UK that's carrying knives anymore?
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, there is quite a bit of knife crime in the UK.
Well, that's because the guns were banned, so then we saw knife crime going up.
We saw gun crime go up in the United Kingdom too. Gun crime went up significantly, as did many other categories of violent crime, such as burglary and assault. Pretty much across the board, you saw violent crime rates go up in the United Kingdom after there was a complete ban on handguns. There are still a couple of circumstances in the UK where, yes, if you're a farmer, you can get a shotgun, something like that. But for the most part, you're not allowed any kind of a weapon that is practical for self-defense. And once we saw that, we didn't see gun crime in the United Kingdom go away either. Granted, it's easier to get a knife in the UK than to get a gun. Guns probably are not as available to criminals in the United Kingdom, but they're assured that their victims are going to be disarmed. So they don't really have much of an incentive not to get a gun and break into houses and rob people, because they know that the vast majority of the time they're not going to meet any kind of significant armed resistance.
All right. Seems ridiculous to me. But
it's ridiculous to me too. And now they're arming their police force in the United Kingdom, whereas at one point they didn't feel the need to, because violent crime rates went up.
Anyways, well, to me it's worrisome because we're seeing things creep over here to the United States as well. This stuff is going on in the UK, and my heart goes out to people who are stuck over there, but this stuff's creeping over here as well. I mean, we've got this pesky constitution that stands in the way, and holds back the tidal waters a little bit, but things are ebbing and flowing and leaking through, and these same policies are starting to creep over here, banning guns in a lot of cities, getting stricter gun laws on the books, as well as even some Nerf guns are being banned from certain state campuses. And this is an article that you have. It's not quite so serious, but at the same time, it's very disheartening in a way. It just shows the road we're going down.
Yeah, this is coming from Colorado. While one Colorado university considers whether it should continue to allow concealed carry of weapons, another has banned students from using Nerf guns. Colorado State University currently allows people with concealed carry permits to carry guns many places on campus. The University of Colorado, like most schools, does not. And the University of Colorado says its policy also bans the use of fake guns, and that includes the Nerf guns used to play the popular college tag game known as Humans vs. Zombies, which I've never played before, but apparently some people play humans with the Nerf guns and socks, and other people play zombies, and you can freeze the zombies by hitting them with the Nerf guns or with the socks.
Now, what worries me about this, Nick, is this is a public campus. There are tax dollars, U.S. tax dollars from people like you and like myself who are paying for this. And they're banning a Nerf gun. Now, if this was a private school, there'd be no issue with it. If you want to ban guns or weapons or fake guns and fake weapons, that would be fine with me. But banning a Nerf gun to me seems a little extreme when it's my tax dollars and your tax dollars that are going into this. It's sending the wrong message.
And
almost.
It's not just, I mean, what they're telling students here, at least what they're threatening students with, is not simply, say, administrative action or discipline within the university system. They're saying here, there's an excerpt here with an actual warning poster, and it says in bold print, "Do not have a Nerf gun on your person at any time. You will be arrested and treated as a gunman." You can arrest somebody for carrying a Nerf gun because it's against school policy? I mean, I realize that on some campuses, instead of campus security, they actually have police departments specifically to that campus that have
arresting powers.
Yeah, they have their arresting powers. They have their own jurisdiction. But I was not aware that they could simply arrest people for violating college policy.
And this is a Nerf gun. This isn't something that would be confused as a real weapon. This is a Nerf gun, a bright
they're yellow, they're plastic,
Nerf gun.
They have bits of purple and
you see
orange
them up on the
on
screen.
them.
I mean, it's ridiculous that anyone would possibly fathom that this is a real weapon. So it's almost the message, the mentality of what's being taught here to these university students.
Well, I think people who are most likely to be just deathly afraid of guns are probably people who don't really have a good understanding of guns. It's very easy to fear something if you don't really have a good working knowledge of it, a good understanding. And if you have no understanding how a gun works or what a real gun actually is supposed to look like, then I suppose it's more likely that you're not going to be able to discern between a Nerf gun and an actual firearm.
But these are a college elite. These are supposed to be...
They're supposed to be the educated classes that are going to move on to be leaders.
But they're educating people to be afraid of a Nerf gun, Nick. And this is America, goddammit.
Yeah.
Second Amendment, right? Yet on a public university campus that my tax dollars are going towards, and it doesn't matter any state campus, there's federal monies that go towards that as well, through financial aid and such. My tax dollars going to this to essentially put a mindset into an entire graduating class or every student that passes through this university of a Nerf gun is something to be afraid of.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is America, but I'm not sure how much that actually means anymore.
It used to mean something.
Yeah, well,
and in certain parts of America, it still does. In New Hampshire, it really still means something.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, there has been progress made in some areas on relaxing concealed carry laws and things like that across the country over the last decade and a half, because there are groups out there lobbying for a less restrictive gun laws, for an easing of gun laws that they see as violating the Second Amendment to the Constitution. So there has been some progress made, but there's definitely this undercurrent out there that there are people out there who really want people to be deathly afraid of Nerf guns, and they would like to see guns banned entirely. And you know.
I'm sure the same people who enacted this policy would love it if there weren't guns allowed, if there wasn't a Second Amendment in general. It's just disgusting to me, Nick. I don't even own a gun, I'm not going to lie, but I really support the right of other people to do, and I know that my neighbor having a gun is a deterrent for people breaking into my house. Because what if I do have a gun? Nobody even the hardest anti-gun person out there, they're not going to put a sign in their lawn that says this house contains no guns. That would be foolish. That would be inviting robbers into their home. But people aren't going to do that, even people who want to ban Nerf guns.
Yeah, and I don't know.
See, we played this, it wasn't a zombie game when I went to college, but we used squirt guns to play squirt gun tag. It was different teams. And
Were squirt guns allowed?
Well, at this campus, I'm sure they're not. At Keene State, they were fine with it. But
it just seems common sense to me.
Oh, God. You know,
I don't understand how you can be afraid of plastic. It's not even a realistic plastic gun. I mean, maybe if it's a realistic-looking plastic gun, those are out there, I could understand how somebody might be legitimately concerned that it would cause a panic. But when you're talking about a Nerf gun or water guns, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it doesn't even make sense if you're looking on the mentality of banning guns, period, on college campuses. That's just saying, here's an unarmed populace come and attack us. We're looking at cases like Virginia Tech that there would have been a person or two dead if there was someone around who had a concealed gun on them to take out Cho. But there wasn't, so we just had a free killing spree of everybody.
Yeah, well, and that's what, I mean, to some extent, that's what irks me, because if I'm not going to a college or a university, a public college or university, but I am a concealed carry permit holder, and I want to walk across part of the campus, I have to violate the law in order to do that. That doesn't make very much sense to me.
Especially when your tax dollars went to pave the freaking road that it's on.
Right. I mean, it should be a public place, just like if I was walking down the street.
Walking through the park.
You know, I can understand why the idea of giving college kids guns, allowing them to carry them on campus. College kids don't have the greatest reputation for being responsible. I understand why people get a little bit nervous at that idea, but
especially with the drinking,
and the drug use. But you don't have to be a college student to happen to have a gun on your person and walk across part of a college campus. And I just don't understand why people's Second Amendment rights supposedly don't apply if they're walking across part of a college campus or a university campus.
True that.
It's always just confused me.
Anyways, if you have a different opinion, we would love to hear it, and I'm sure a lot of you do. fmtv@freemindsmedia.org is the email address. If nothing else, at least maybe we provoked some of your thoughts. Some of you agree, disagree. The goal of this is not to necessarily steer you in a certain direction, but to get you thinking differently, different than what the mainstream media might be feeding you. Anyways, we like to try to look at things from a different perspective. So, if you like this show, if it's your first time, let us know. We like to hear from you. fmtv@freemindsmedia.org or .com. I think either one will get you. Anyways, that's going to do it for this week. Join us this Sunday and every Sunday from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Free Minds Radio. Until then, it's been Toby here with you.
And Nick.
Have a great night.